Hello and welcome to the Politics of the Middle East. I'm really excited about teaching this class this winter session, and I'm also excited that it was so popular. So we have a full house, and I think we will all be, it cannot be more timely to teach the Middle East. Although I have to say, and you will notice too, obviously, that the last decades have been very timely to teach the Middle East. So this lecture is mainly to introduce you to this class, so you're also welcome to just go back to this lecture if you're unsure about assignments, but you're obviously always welcome to write me. So let me introduce myself real quick. I am a teacher or a professor at the University of Arizona as well as at the University of Montana, and my research mainly focuses on Europe and the European Union and the Middle East, but also on transatlantic relationships. So you will notice in this class that while I will be talking a lot about the politics in and of itself of the Middle East, I also think that the international relations that influence this region are probably as important as the domestic politics. So I hope you enjoy the ride the next 3 weeks. It will be an intense one, and that's why I think it's even more important to go carefully through the syllabus with you again. And I'm hoping you already placed the syllabus under your pillow to look at it on a regular basis. So talk today just generally a little bit about why this class is important, for some of you just because it's very convenient placed right before the spring semester, but also maybe because it was not taught at the UM in my to my knowledge in almost 10 years. So it's more than time to do this. So I will walk you through why I think this class is important, despite the fact that it's placed nicely, that it fits to your schedule, that it's online, and that it has not been taught at the UN for a while. But why is it important content-wise, of course? Then I will go over the course overview a little bit, what do you expect to do the next couple weeks, and then my assignments and expectations. I really make an effort for everybody to do a really good job. So, so I always encourage you to write me if anything is unclear about what you should be doing for this class. So why do I believe this class is important? First of all, let's talk a little bit about what the Middle East is in the first place, and I think that is the educational goal, right? To kind of introduce you first of all, what is this region and where it is placed, in the as you can see on this map, but also more generally, why is everybody so interested? It's like always coming in news, if it's either for the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, if it's for the Syrian civil war, and most of the time it's really known for wars. But what is actually happening within these regions in terms of politics? That's, I hope at the end of this class, or not I hope, I'm pretty sure you will have a really good idea about what's going on there specifically. But let's go step back. So what is the Middle East actually in the first place? Let's get that out of the way before we actually get started with the class. So when I use the term Middle East for this class, I really think about the Middle East and North Africa in a fairly broad term. So the Middle East, when you read about it in the news, it's usually the short version of Middle East and North Africa. It's just too long to talk about it. Some refer to it just being the Arabian Peninsula, including Turkey, maybe Iran, but it does make sense to really look, and that was our books are doing too, to really look at the whole region. So it refers mainly to countries that are a member of the League of Arab States, but it also includes Israel, which is of course not Arab, and also other non-Arab countries such as Turkey or Iran. So you can divide it in mainly 3 sub-regions, if you want to say so. First is North Africa, which spans on the southern shore here of the Mediterranean Sea, including Algeria, Egypt, Libya, Morocco, and Tunisia. You can also include sub-Saharan Africa in this part of more like the northern African part of it, so Mali, Chad, Sudan, Eritrea. But we don't do this in this class, so I really just focus here on the shore of the southern Mediterranean. Then the eastern Mediterranean, most prominently right now, of course, Syria, but also Lebanon, Jordan, Israel, and Palestine, as well as Turkey. So everything that's on the eastern shore of the Mediterranean. So I think just to look at it geographically is, I think, kind of helps you define the region. And then the oil-producing countries of the Gulf and the Arabian Peninsula. We do have Algeria in northern Africa, and Libya, of course, most prominently, that are producing oil too. But let's look at the most prominent country we know, of course from the U.S. perspective, Saudi Arabia, but also Iraq, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Oman, Yemen, and then the non-Arab countries, right? Also there's Iran. So I want you, in this class, each of you will pick a country from the Middle East and North Africa, and look at it a little bit more specifically, because I cannot even attempt to cover all of them, and I won't even if we would have like maybe you would be in a graduate program and we would do this for a while. So I really want you to take on one country that you're interested in, or various reasons. One student already broke me off; she's traveling to Israel, so. And that would be a good time to take that on. So please look at the list of countries that I provided. I don't have all of them on here. I wanted to make sure that it's easy to research and you get a good overview. I will go through them later too. But one aspect that you really have to keep in mind when we talk about the Middle East is that it's an artificially created region. We cannot really talk about that the Middle East and North Africa is all the same. I think, and that often happens because when we talk about the Middle East, we usually just use one word, and it would be a little bit similar as if we would just expect Europe being so the same, and if you have ever traveled to Europe, you know that Greece is very different to Sweden, and Germany very different to Spain, and keep that in mind, when we talk about the Middle East and North Africa. And one goal of this class is really to show you how diverse this region is. And not only in terms of that not all countries are Arab, I think that but most people maybe assume, but also in terms of government, in terms of politics, in terms of economics. There are very big differences and lot of obstacles why this region is almost politically dysfunctional in terms of cooperation. So keep all these things in mind, and my goal is really to show you the diversity of this region and understand the politics better after this class. So that is kind of the first part of the class. Is really you pick a country, and I walk you through a couple of general nuts and bolts of the political regimes and also economies, but when you also do your independent research on your specific countries. And the second part is a very interesting question, in my opinion. Pretty much, what are the chances of democracy in this region? And that has something to do with a lot of different ways. But the Middle East is very interesting in this regard. If you look at democracy, I mean, if you here see the kind of a map of Freedom House, it's a nonprofit organization that measures the degree of freedom and democracy in the world every year. And if you just looked at the most recent report, it is pretty interesting. If you look at here, like blue is not free, yellow is partly free, and green is free. You see that the Middle East and North Africa is really the most undemocratic region in the world. And I will go into that a little bit more in detail. But really for decades, since we know modern countries in the Middle East, and even before that, some say even forever, in our knowledge, the Middle East and North Africa has never really been in any way other than under authoritarian rule. We have a couple exceptions, of course, and you can see these here in light yellow. I will go through them, of course, in our lectures. Morocco is an exception, Turkey is an exception, most recently Tunisia, but also, of course, Israel. Lebanon to a certain extent too. So since really up to the Arab Spring in 2010, 2011, and then the uprising towards more democratic regimes and more democracy in the region, we really had no. The Middle East was pretty much a desert of democracy. So now we have Tunisia, the largest exception here, that really has become democratic, but that's really the only country. And we'll look a little bit into that a little bit more in detail when we talk about the Arab Spring. So today, the Middle East is the most undemocratic region in the world, and you could maybe say again, because it's just simply the fact that the Arab Spring didn't change much. So out of 18 countries total in that area, there are only 11%, pretty much 2 countries that are free, and these are Israel and Tunisia. Then partly free, Morocco, interestingly Kuwait too, and Lebanon. And then And then obviously all the others are kind of under not free. So I mean, it might also be worth it to look at, you know, the Freedom House report of your country that you're choosing. So pretty much only 5% of the whole overall population of the Arab Spring, of the Middle East is free. So that's pretty interesting. You know, that's really only Eurasia, the region of Eurasia, that is close to being that undemocratic. So why is that the case, right? I mean, let's look into that a little bit. Let's look into why there's no, you know, democracy didn't spread in that area, although it spread all over the world. Why did the Arab Spring actually didn't change much? You know, why was that? Why is that so? The prospects of democracy are so dire in the region. So. And that kind of like fits into the general, you know, what you will learn about. What can you expect to learn about in this class? So obviously the history of the Middle East, which I will only be able to cover very briefly. Political regimes, political economy, the international relations, democracy, but also Islam and gender. So other really good like can Islam and gender really, or the role of women, and the maybe more restrictive role of women, can really that maybe explain why there's no democracy? And you will dive really deep into your countries. I mean, I will give you an overview, but you will really be doing the work of looking into your country and why you specifically think it's so difficult for democracy to get a hold there. So let's look how that actually looks then in terms of your you know, contents of the class. So that I will actually talk about later again are Egypt, Tunisia, Algeria, Libya, Israel, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, Palestine, Syria, Turkey, Kuwait, Morocco, and Jordan. You can find the list also, of course, in the syllabus. Pick one and write me. So the assignments and expectations. Oh, let me just go through the assignments real quick before I actually start with the next class. So the participation, you have to, and please review the syllabus for that too. You have to focus on the readings and lectures of each week. I want you to directly cite them and list them under each post. I want you to have one original post and also respond to another one. Posts must be completed by 10 p.m. That's very important. Start early so we can actually have an online discussion. For our graduate students, which are a couple, please also look at the syllabus again, but your requirements are a little different, and please obviously contact me if you don't know. The quiz will just be on the first week of assignments. It will open on Wednesday and will close on Sunday, 10 p.m. But it will not only be on the lectures, but it will also be on current events. So make sure that you obviously not only do the readings that are assigned, but also check the sources that are listed on the syllabus, how to access current events more generally in the Middle East. That's about the quiz. Your country brief will be about 500 and 650 words, and should outline the regime type of your country. That's all outlined in the syllabus. The political economy, politics, and the impact of international relations that were discussed in the class. So make sure that you have academic sources, at least 4 that are peer-reviewed. And note that Wikipedia is not a source, of course. If you are unsure about your sources, please contact me or the library. Also very helpful in finding the right sources. Then if you want to have a writing requirement, or you want to have the writing credits for this class, then you have to you have to write a longer country brief, 3 to 5 pages, and you have to rework it, but just look at the syllabus again for that. So the final paper then is a little different. What you do in the final paper is you focus on 3 main questions on democracy in your country. So how is democracy understood? What are the 3 major challenges of democracy in your country, and how would you promote democracy in your country? This paper needs 10 academic references and should not be longer than 1,800 words. It's important that you have it done by the date assigned on the syllabus. So please, right there for the graduate students, it looks a little different. So please look at that again, so you're sure that you have you get the graduate credit. So you need to contact me with any research questions. So look at the syllabus for that again as well. Okay, that's it. A little longer than I expected it, but I hope it helps you navigating through this class. And please don't hesitate to contact me. For this week, you need to introduce yourself in Moodle, but please don't forget that. It's really nice to actually put a little story behind students for me, because obviously I would rather have you in the class and talk to you. And email me your country preference by Tuesday, please. So that's it from me, and my next lecture will be the nuts and bolts of Middle East history.